Hey, welcome back to this episode, friends, where we're answering one of your questions. You sent in a question about a husband who has transformed his heart, who has let go of the addiction of pornography. And the question is that really true? Can
Does
my
that really
husband,
happen?
is that really happen? Can my husband just really get rid of this addiction of pornography?
Right.
Will you read her question?
Yeah. So I discovered my husband's infidelity through webcams and porn addiction in January. Since then, he has repented, become a believer, got baptized, started a support group through our church, has an accountability group, and has really pursued his own walk with God, regardless of whether or not it would save our marriage. He still struggles with shame and guilt. After his encounter with God, he has not even been tempted to look at pornography and is even disgusted and triggered by the sight of a laptop and only uses his phone for phone calls, GPS, and worship music. He also loves Brad and Lisa and you all, but since he doesn't allow himself to have YouTube, we watch y'all together. So my question is, can God really just take that addiction away from him, or is he just not being truthful with me or even himself? I just think if it was a true addiction, it would be a lot more difficult to stop. What a great question. Thank you for sending this in.
Yeah. And also, thank you for watching our videos together. We really appreciate you doing that. And I hope you find a lot of value in those videos.
Yes.
Next, I want to acknowledge your husband. You mentioned a lot of things in there that he has done. He's received Jesus. He has looked for forgiveness. He has created an accountability group, a support group.
Great.
There's so many things that reminds me of me and my story. When I finally hit rock bottom and I'm like, you know what? I can't even figure out how to take care of myself anymore. I've got to just rely on Jesus and rely on his help for me. Then I could start lifting myself up. And I was researching everything I could research. I went to support groups. I went to therapy multiple times a week. I was in accountability groups. I was doing everything I possibly could. And I don't necessarily recommend all of the things that I did, but what I hear and what your husband is doing, and what I hear in his heart is he is determined not to be the man he used to be, but he's determined to be a man of God called into integrity. That's what I hear. So I just want to acknowledge that first, that all the steps that he's taking to be a different person. That's amazing to do
Yes.
that. And it's amazing that both of you are committed to working on your marriage together through this.
Yeah, and I also hear that he's like, I have lived that and I don't want to go back. And so I'm going to be doing these things, which are probably different for him. They were different for you. You'd never done those before.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be doing this so that I don't go back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's such a great thing that he is really being intentional with God and with his sobriety around pornography. So
Yeah.
incredible.
And I think one of the main questions here is, can he, the husband, really not be tempted
Right.
with
Is that really
pornography?
true?
Is that really true? Can he not be tempted with pornography or going to look at pornography? Is that really true that my husband can be delivered from that? I don't have the ability to answer that question for your husband, but I do have the ability to talk about myself and talk about the men that I've coached and just the transformation that Jesus can provide to anyone who's looking for transformation, a transformed heart. And that's exactly what I received. I received a transformed heart that that I knew that pornography wasn't for me anymore. Now, did that stop temptation? I'm just going to be honest that there's still temptation to look at women. There's still temptation to do those things, but my mind is altered. My mind is completely renewed to where my flesh is not the one that's taking priority over me anymore. My flesh does not lean out to like, that's what I'm going to consume and that's what I'm going to do. It is, I know that that person is a child of God and I have a different context around the thought process.
So not only that, but you have taken your flesh, which was in charge, at that time, you were giving into fleshly desires over and over.
Yeah.
And I would, it's probably safe to say you had no control over that.
That's a
Like,
good point. Yeah.
you couldn't stop yourself
It feels like I couldn't stop myself.
because the flesh is so strong.
It is.
But when Jesus comes in, it reorders things and it puts this, as long as you're open, he will transform you from the inside out and it will put the spirit in control.
Spirit, soul, and then my body.
And that's what I totally relate to this question because I had it also. I was hearing these things from you and I'm like, okay, well, this is all still very new and fresh for me, and it's still very painful. And I don't know that I trust you and believe what you're saying.
Which is okay not to trust and not to believe. It's okay to seek that out.
I needed time of you continuing to show up in integrity and continuing to do the things, not just to, please me and appease the things I needed, but for you, that it was so that you continue to walk in freedom.
That's right.
And I think that is what I would say here as well is, as your husband continues this walk of integrity, when Jesus really has transformed someone, they continue that way. And it's a lifestyle. And, there are other things where I think it's really important to understand that the flesh desires don't go away. Like you said, the temptations don't go away. But it's not giving into the temptation because that does not appeal. There aren't desires for that anymore.
Exactly.
Because the spirit has transformed what you desire now.
It has.
So it's you still have to pay attention to the flesh. You have to make sure it stays in check. And we're going to share a few ways to do that. But also allowing the spirit to just transform you from the inside out. You really can have an addiction just disappear. But I think it takes reprogramming the mind and the body.
Yes.
That when I'm feeling this way, I don't go do XYZ, which is the acting out of the pornography.
There's a program in there, things you hear, maybe music you hear, locations you go to. There are programs that the body will have in place that tells you, all right, well, when I do this, I'm going to look at pornography, or when I do this, I'm going to masturbate. And you have to reprogram just because you have spiritual freedom.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have mind and body freedom. Those have to be reprogrammed. And that is through some time.
And new choices.
And accountability and boundaries and safeguards. And there's building the trust. And it's a continual thing of multiple facets.
Right.
Multiple facets.
Yeah. And anytime there has been broken trust there, it takes time to rebuild that trust. And I remember just sitting there having conversation with you where I'm asking you, like, how is it going in the area of purity? And you would tell me, I don't have these desires anymore. It just isn't there for me. And I'm like, okay, I just can't see how it can just all of a sudden disappear.
Yeah.
So I would ask more questions like, can you share like what that is like? What do you mean you don't have that desire? How do you go from watching and being engaged to getting caught to now you don't desire that? And over time of really trying to understand your heart and understand God's transformation in you, I really did begin to believe those things. And it just took time of really connecting on that level and understanding what that's really like. We mentioned earlier about there are rituals and things that happen when we're feeling a certain way. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, probably one of my biggest ones is I have this thorn where this really deep emotional thorn that I have from my past when I'm feeling unworthy. And that's a real big trigger for me to desire to go do that. Where I'm feeling like I'm just not worthy. It triggers me to act out in that way. There's a few other ones, and this is common for men and women, is when I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed. When those things come up for us, there's more likely a chance that you're going to fall into bad negative behaviors. Because here's why. I am designed to be a whole and complete individual in God. I need to have a vertical relationship with God. And when I'm not there, I'm usually depleted in some area of my life. When I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed. All those are not whole and complete attributes in my life. Those are depleted areas. And when I'm depleted, I'm more likely to fall into temptation from the enemy. And so are you.
Right.
Each one of you listening and watching today, it's not a man thing, it's a human thing. Temptation will take us out. It's not really a pornography thing.
Yeah.
There's gambling and shopping and drinking and drugs, and we're all looking for a way to complete ourselves. And we're looking for God, but we look for him in all the different places that are wrong.
Yeah. And I think it's really easy when there's been a spiritual freedom and transformation that's taken place to be like, I'm free of all of that. And you're on fire for God. And then you kind of get comfortable.
Yes.
And the enemy is waiting on that moment. And that's what you were just talking about. You're comfortable in the fact that you're not as whole and complete. You're good. You're not struggling. You're close with God, but then you start spending less time with God. So it's just this natural thing that's going to happen anytime there's been a spiritual freedom. The enemy is waiting for that one moment that he knows that your body and your mind are programmed from the past, and he can utilize that, our fleshly desires in that way, in that moment.
Yeah.
And if you're not prepared by having great boundaries and accountability and having conversations with your spouse, safeguards, if you don't have those things in place to prevent falling over the edge, is what we call it, for boundaries and safeguards. If you don't have something to prevent you from falling over the edge, you will jump off unintentionally because this program's from the past. So that's how we go about in all of our teaching in our online academy, that there's a spiritual freedom that has to take place, but there's also a mind and body that has to experience freedom as well. And that's where a lot of our work around thorns and in our past really comes into play, because it helps you get freedom in your body and your mind all the way from back when you were 7 or 8 years old, and you've been carrying it ever since.
That's right.
So it's a lasting freedom. And that's just completely different than like willpower of, I'm never going to look at pornography again, and I'm sick of that lifestyle. I don't want it. But you don't do all these other things, then you're going to fall into that trap again, because willpower just isn't enough.
It's not. Willpower is not enough. There's so many men that I coach that is what they lean into. They're like, I appreciate all your tips and advice, Travis. I appreciate all the safeguards and boundaries that you want to provide and give, but I'm good. I only look at porn once a month. I only look at porn every so often. It's not that big of a deal. I'll be fine. The enemy is real.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking for you. He's looking for that spirit of pride in you that says, I'm good.
Yep.
And we're not. We are not. I'll have a good bit of men who use things like software like Covenant Eyes, which is what I use. And they may be on Covenant Eyes for a period of time. And then they're like, I don't need it anymore. I don't need to pay that fee anymore. It's not that big of a deal. And that's where the tempter is looking to take us out.
Yeah.
I've had the same thoughts multiple times because I don't want to pay the fees every year. And I've been paying the fees for 6 years. And I'm like, I'm good. I haven't looked at porn in 6 years.
The enemy's waiting.
I can just cancel this service and it's not that big of a deal. But it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. It's just it's something that keep you from, it makes you think twice before you do it. It can't prevent it altogether, But safeguards are just meant for you to go, wait a second, do I really want to make this choice right now? And that's really important. Or talking about renewing the mind and how we think in those moments of depletion.
Yeah, I've heard it said that I don't know why this come up for me, but it is. I've heard it said like I need to stop looking at pornography, or I need to stop acting out sinfully before I can have this relationship with Jesus. But here's what's interesting is when you have the relationship with Jesus and you're fully connected to him, the looking at the pornography, the doing the other things, they go away because the relationship with Jesus, a true relationship with Jesus, really shows me that those things aren't needed, that they have no value in my life at all. And they will fall off when I'm fully connected and getting that vertical relationship with him.
Yes.
So we just want to throw a few tips out there too, because there could be a good opportunity in here for the husband and the wife relationship to become a parent-child relationship. Is he doing what he needs to do?
Right. Because I don't want to go through this again.
Then you don't. And none of us want to go through this again. And so there's a temptation to be like, I need to make sure he's good and not doing the things that got us here.
Right.
And a parent-child relationship is just not going to work. It's not going to be helpful. So we have to let go of control.
All of it.
I cannot control him. I've got to let go of that control. But you can have good conversation with him about, does he have boundaries and safeguards? Is he with an accountability group? Are they men, not mixed sex in the accountability group? It can't be that. Has to be same sex in the accountability group, that they love you, they love Jesus, and they don't mind asking you the hard questions around, hey, are you looking at pornography right now?
Right.
Have you lied about anything you've said to me during this conversation? Those questions are important, but we have to let go of control of the spouse.
Right. Because you're just getting in God's way. God does a much better job than a spouse does anyways. So I just encourage you to continue trusting in what your husband is saying if he is being in integrity, and really trusting the Lord that he is going to do the work in your husband as you let go.
That leads us to the second point, is prayer. And the prayer could be purity of their heart. Open up their eyes, ears, heart, and mind to the way God would have them see each other, to see people, to see themselves, to see you as their spouse. Pray over them and their purity specifically. It's powerful. Prayer works.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I pray over Travis's purity in his heart all the time.
Thank you.
That's really important to me, that there is a guard around his heart in purity. And I just cover him in prayer in that way. And I also cover him in protection from the enemy and the temptation that's put before him. So I really encourage you to lean deep into prayer and allow the Holy Spirit to even guide you into what you should pray over, specifically for your spouse.
Yeah, I just want to throw this out there. Temptation is not the sin.
Right.
Temptation happens no matter what, no matter who you are or where you go. Temptation happens because the enemy is real. It's what do I do with that? What do I do with that?
So another tip is encouraging your spouse. It's really easy sometimes to find the things that they're not doing well, but really looking for the things to praise them and the things they're doing right. We have this phrase that what gets praised gets repeated. And this isn't in a manipulative way. It's when I praise the good things that you're doing, we like that. We're human beings. So we like that acknowledgement, and it encourages us to do more of that.
Superman. When you tell me, Adele, hey, I really like whenever you go talk to this accountability group. I really like when you're speaking truth into men. I really like when you're reading this type of material to learn more and to be able to work more into the ministry.
That really helps me trust you more when you are doing this and when I'm seeing that. And
it makes me feel so good about what it is I'm doing. And I don't feel it's manipulative. It really makes me feel like Superman.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that in that phrase, you're not hearing me as you just praise somebody to get what you want. That's not what this is about. But when I'm seeing real change in you that is helping my healing, it's helping me trust you, it's helping build connection, why wouldn't I want to tell you that?
Yeah.
Because that fosters more of that. And so as your spouse is making the right choices, really encourage them and praise them for doing that. It will go such a long way.
I think it's really important also that you maintain great open communications. We suggest routine check ins once a day for a few minutes. How are things going? Now, this doesn't have to necessarily be about, hey, are you watching pornography or masturbating today?
Right.
It's check ins to really see your spouse's heart.
Right.
Where are they? Because I'm telling you something. If I'm choosing to live a secret life and outside of our marriage between Adele and I'm choosing to go look at pornography and masturbate, I am definitely not going to be acting appropriately in our marriage. I'm going to be withholding from you. I'm not going to be able to look you in the eyes and connect with you. We're not going to have great, intimate conversations anymore because there's a block.
Right.
There's a block that stops us. But when we're connecting every day, you get to hear my heart. I get to hear your heart. And it could just be a quick few minute conversation every day. You know, once a week, getting together for 30 minutes or an hour and having great conversation. Once a month, getting away for a weekend, still connecting heart to heart level. When you're connecting with your spouse on that type of conversation daily, weekly, monthly, and then quarterly, taking a 3-day vacation or something, you're going to be doing great. You're going to be doing great.
Mhm. And it's connecting on a heart level. And we didn't know how to do that when we first started. And so we recommend get some conversation cards.
We had multiple different packets of conversation starters we found from different companies or gifts that we received.
We didn't know how to communicate.
We
on
had
that
no
level.
idea how to communicate, how to ask good questions. The questions we used to ask was yes and no answers. We
Right.
never got anywhere.
Yeah.
But asking good questions that will lead to good conversation, I had no idea that existed until we got good conversation starters.
Mhm.
You know what? We'll put a link in here for a free group of conversation starters for you, a PDF that you can download that
Yep.
have great conversation starters between you and your spouse.
Yeah, and just begin getting to know your spouse. What's fun is we've been through several of ours multiple times. And when we come back around to the same questions, they're different answers.
They are.
We're constantly always evolving and changing. And, it's just amazing how if I am a student of you, I'm constantly learning new things. So we just encourage you, be a student of your spouse and keep that communication open. And then around the topic of purity, I would say that's important to have that conversation. I would say we did it once a month.
Yeah. I think some good questions around there is, hey, if you were having a temptation, who would you call? If you were having a temptation, what would be your next step? How can I best support you around temptations? Yeah, I think the key here is preventing it from going to an accusatory type conversation. That's the fastest way to shut down your spouse. We want to be on the same team, going toward the same goal, and we're committed to purity. That's what we're committed to. No, we're not committed to shame. We're not committed to condemnation, because therefore there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Put horns on shame and condemnation, but a good conversation on, hey, how can I support you? And then how can I best support you?
Yeah, that's great. So we hope you found a lot of value in this episode today. And for the one who sent in this question, look in your inbox. You have a special code coming for you for the emotional safety course for couples. This course is going to help you connect on a heart level in an emotionally safe environment. It's going to teach you how to have the speaker and the listener and how to communicate back and forth.
How to speak from curiosity and not from judgment.
Right.
How to have a good setting and when's the best time to have this conversation with your spouse. All that can be found in this course.
And for those of you watching today, go check out that course as well. Travis will put a link up here so that you can go read all about it and if it would be right for your marriage.
We do. We ain't.
Did you know that we had an argument right before this video? Because we did. And our mics, they don't even work.
No, we ran these for show. They don't even work. We just broke them. Yeah, we don't have that perfect marriage that some people think that we have.
No.
We have arguments too. But the difference is we have the ability to less than an hour later be on video filming for you and everything's fine.
Yeah.
We have resiliency.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
We practice what we teach.
Yes. And as soon as you heard me, it was all good.
When people get heard, they get complete.
Thanks for joining us today on this episode. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. I lost my train of thought because, I was going to go somewhere.
You're doing great.
You know, when I started seeing you make different steps forward, when I saw you having different actions and behaviors, where am I going with this?
Saving me. Talk. You're doing great.
You know, this isn't in a manipulative, that's a hard word.